Hello and welcome. My name is Kendra Little, and I am on the advocates team at Redgate. And I wanted today to show a couple of new features in SQL Change Automation in Management Studio. Here is the SQL Change Automation window in Management Studio. I'm going to go ahead and close it and just reopen my project. I'm working in a project based on the Pubs database from Microsoft. Microsoft shares that under the MIT license. It's a great little database to create and use for demos. You can find it on GitHub. That's where Microsoft shares the code for both the Pubs and the Northwind database. And I'm going to show a couple things today. One of the things we're going to talk about here is this new tab in the plugin for Management Studio. This is for static data tables. SQL Change Automation has had static data for a while in Visual Studio. And static data tables, these are really useful for lots of things. So if you go to this data tab here, it'll explain that a lot of people use these for reference tables. These are tables where the user, you don't have like a website where users are entering country lists. You generally have a standard list of countries that you're going to have users choose from in a drop-down box. Now, some companies use this for other things that are lists of data that they want to manage in source control as well. So you're not limited to those types of things, but it's most commonly used for that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click Add Tables here. And when I do that, in Management Studio, it pops up a nice little window that says, hey, here are different tables you could add. Now, notice that the ones that have pluses, they're ready to be added. Some of these others aren't. And conveniently, in one spot, it sets expectations and is like, okay, this doesn't meet the requirements to be added as a static data table. It needs a primary key. So the delightfully named I'm a new table does not qualify, but we actually have some more long-standing tables in the Pubs database which also don't have primary keys. Now, that's a little odd. Maybe those tables should have a primary key, but that's a different story. So when you click Add Tables, it lets you know which tables actually do qualify and don't qualify, which is really, really useful. Let's say that we wanted to add this list of stores as a static data table. So I'm going to click plus on the list of stores, and we can see in the window here that stores has only 6 data rows, right? So this is a small reference table suitable to be added as static data. If we had a much larger list, right? If we had millions and millions of rows, in some ways, depending on the nature of the data and how we need to manage it, there are some cases where if you have a narrow table, even with a lot of rows, you may want to manage it in something like version control. And it may not actually take up a lot of space, right? Row count on a very narrow table may not actually take up a lot of space. If you want to use that as static data with larger tables, this will warn you if the row count is high, because you might want to, for tables that have more rows, if it is suitable to put them in version control, you might want to use something like bulk loading to load them. And we do have a method that you can do that too. So it looks at, hey, how many rows are in here? And I'll give you a warning if it's high and you might want to use another method for it. But this one seems quite suitable, and I like the idea of adding this. If I want to change this, let's say I don't want to do all the columns. Notice there's a little pencil button here. This is really cool. And let's say that I don't care about zip code. Okay. I don't care about zip code there. Maybe let's take store name off there too. So I can actually edit which columns are contained in the static data. And that's really, really useful because there may be some column in this table that I just don't want in there. I don't want to store the data in source control for that. So that's very, very useful as well. I could also use the X here if I want to, if I change my mind and, oh, I don't want to do that table. So let's go ahead and re-add that back. We're going to go back to the stores table. We'll re-add it back and we'll select those columns there. So let's just do 2. Let's say we only want city and state on there. Now when I go into generating migrations, it is going to see, hey, you made a change where I've made other changes too. Before I started this live stream, I did make a change to the authors table, right? But this, the one we're doing for static data is the stores table. It is a new static data table, and we can see that the object type is data. I already had the schema for stores under source control, but we didn't have this data here. And notice that we have the key column, and then we've got just the columns that we selected there. This is all showing on the database side. This is what's in my database. We don't have anything yet in source control because this is being added new to source control. Now that authors table, I wanted to show you something else too with the authors table here before we move on. There's something I've done. I've activated a new feature for this authors table. We are modifying the authors table. And notice that one of the changes I made was to create a non-clustered index. And notice here that the code now says with online equals on. This is a new option that we can control. And I'll show you how you can turn this on. If you want to now say, by default, script my migrations with online equals on, you can. So I'm going to click here and say generate migrations. It says I have created this migration script for you, and it scripted out all the changes I have there. And notice when it is creating these non-clustered indexes here, it is by default creating them with online equals on. That's because I set a property telling it to do that. So if I go into my file explorer for my project here, in SQL Change Automation, this is controlled in the .SQL proj file. So I'm going to go ahead and close my project here. And let's take a look at what I changed in the .SQL proj file. Let's go ahead and open this with... Let's look at it in VS Code just to see. We'll see how the highlighting goes there in VS Code. And the option that I added here, let's see if I can get the right options highlighted here. We have some that are done by default in this property group, sync offline schema model, right? These things are already done here. Here we go. Here is the one that I added. I added this under the SQL Change Automation script generation options. Sync option online index build is now set to true, and that tells the engine to go ahead and script these online by default. So I'm going to go back into my SQL Change Automation project. We'll open pubs there. And of course, I can still edit this, right? These migration scripts are editable. So if I'm like, oh, actually, I don't want this online equals on, or I want to add other properties, I can still edit this if I so choose. I am, the property is saying, hey, what is the default scripting you would like to do? SQL Change Automation, part of the benefits of this model is that this is a hybrid model that allows us to customize these things so that if we do want to customize our migrations, we can. And you can see down here is the auto-generated script for managing the city and state as static data in the stores table there. So very, very cool. Let's go ahead and run verify. I am a frequent verifier. I love the fact that I can verify that my scripts are valid. And of course, anytime I can go to the data tab and see that I do have that dbo.stores data there under source control. So this has been a quick tour of the new static data features, which are now in Management Studio for SQL Change Automation. There, you can still access static data in Visual Studio. That hasn't changed. What has happened, though, is that this has now been added into the Management Studio add-in. And plus, we've got that nice new default scripting option where if you would like to default to scripting your, let's go back to that there. If you'd like to script your indexes to be created online, you are able to do that as well. Thanks for joining me for this live stream today. I'm Kendra Little from Redgate's Advocate Team, and I look forward to seeing you again for another live stream soon. Bye, folks.